Meeting come to order, please. Thank you. Roll call, if you would, press your present button, please. Record it. Thank you. Staff announcements.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We have one announcement, and that would be that item number 20 has been withdrawn, and that would be final plat review for Temple Hill, Section 16, Phase C. And other than that, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have for you tonight.
Thank you, sir. Consideration of the minutes of July 9th. Any correction, changes? Any? Motion made and seconded. Prepare to vote. Vote now. Well, record it. Motion carries. Thank you. Any old business, staff?
No, sir.
Consideration of consent agenda. It's agenda items 3 through 14. Anyone on the board wishing to have that pulled as a separate item, please say so now. Otherwise, we'll take it as a whole. Anyone? None? We'll take it as a whole. Staff?
Mr. Chairman, I will point out one thing before I start. There is a revised report regarding Hopewell Ridge, which is item 9 on the consent agenda. Okay? Thank you. At any rate, we'll begin with item 3, Bell Chase, Section 2, maintenance bond for roads, drainage, and erosion control, $66,000. Recommendation, extending current amount for a period of 1 year and review in 3 months. Item 4, Chardonnay, Section 3, maintenance bond for wastewater collection system, $15,480 rather. Recommendation, release the bond. Item 5, Chardonnay, Section 5, maintenance bond for roads, drainage, and erosion control, $130,000. Recommendation, extending current amount for a period of 1 year. Item 6, Chardonnay, Section 4, maintenance bond for water, $6,050. Recommendation, release the bond. Item 7, Chardonnay, Section 4, maintenance bond for wastewater collection system, $12,210. Recommendation, release the bond. Item 8, Chardonnay, Section 4, maintenance bond for roads, drainage, and erosion control, $100,000. Recommendation, extending current amount for a period of 1 year. Item 9, Hopewell Ridge, maintenance bond for roads, drainage, and erosion control, $60,000. Recommendation, reduced amount to $30,000 and extend for a period of 1 year. Item 10, Kings Chapel, Section 4A, maintenance bond for roads, drainage, and erosion control, $110,000. Recommendation, extend the bond and current amount for a period of 1 year. Item 11, Stag's Leap, Section 3B, maintenance bond for roads, drainage, and erosion control, $180,000. Recommendation, extend and current amount for a period of 1 year. Item 12, The Grove, Section 5, performance bond for water, $42,500. Recommendation, release the bond. Item 13, The Grove, Section 5, performance bond for wastewater collection system, $158,100. Recommendation, extended current amount for a period of 1 year. Item 14, The Grove, Section 5, performance bond for roads, drainage, and erosion control, $600,000. Recommendation, extended current amount for a period of 1 year.
Thank you, sir. Any questions on consent? Comments? Motion? Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Prepare to vote. Vote now. Record it. Motion carries. Thank you. Then item 15, amendment to Article 11 of the Williamson County zoning ordinance regarding rural retreat extensive uses. This is a public hearing. Those of you who wish to make a comment on this agenda item, if you would come to the podium. At that time, if you would give us your name and address, we would appreciate it. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In 2007, the county revised its zoning ordinance to add a rural retreat extensive use classification. That classification allows a limited range of rural commercial activities to take place in areas that are primarily residential and agricultural in nature, provided that certain criteria are met. Typical components of these uses include lodging facilities, which may be provided in the form of guest rooms or campsites, and event venues, which can be rented for weddings or other events. Based on experience gained while administering these regulations over the past 8 years, and after receiving feedback related to these uses from citizens and elected officials, staff has re-examined how these uses are regulated. Specific feedback and concerns relate to negative impacts such as traffic and noise that event venues can have on surrounding properties, the desire to maintain rural character in outlying areas of the county, and a specific proposal for a larger rural retreat extensive use which will be located on a state route within a municipal growth area. This text amendment addresses rural retreat uses in 3 primary ways. First, the amendment includes more stringent standards and establishes a higher level of scrutiny in the approval process for rural retreat extensive uses that include a conference or event center component. Under the proposed amendment, retreats that include an event center would always be considered special uses requiring approval by the Board of Zoning Appeals following a public hearing. Additionally, event venues would trigger larger setback and lot size requirements and would only be permissible on collector or arterial roads which are better able to accommodate traffic associated with events. The additional scrutiny and higher standards are designed to ameliorate negative impacts of these uses on adjoining properties. Secondly, the amendment places a definitive limit on the total number of guest accommodations that may be provided in conjunction with these uses in rural areas, while allowing a higher number of guest accommodations subject to additional criteria in certain zoning districts that are more suitable for larger retreat uses, namely the Municipal Growth Area 1 and Leapers Fork Village zoning districts. Finally, the amendment specifically allows auxiliary restaurants and day spas to be included in conjunction with rural retreat extensive uses within the MGA 1 and Leapers Fork Village districts, subject to additional criteria to ensure that these uses remain strictly ancillary in nature. Staff recommends approval of the amendment. Staff also recommends that the attached resolution be forwarded to the County Commission for adoption.
Thank you, sir. We'll open the floor for a public hearing at this time. If you wish to make a comment, if you would come forward and give us your name and address, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Steve Smith, 12th District County Commissioner, 404 Chatsworth Court, Franklin. I also happen to be, as a County Commissioner, one of Mayor Anderson's appointees to the Williamson County Convention and Visitors Bureau, and at least for another couple of weeks, I'm chairman of that board. And I would just like to speak in support of a resort-type property such as this. The builder and the owners of this project have consulted with us from very early on in this project, and the Bureau feels like projects of this type will be beneficial to Williamson County. We do get requests for corporate retreats or high-end meeting and event space and accommodations. We actually in November conducted a focus group of meeting planners from around Middle Tennessee to find out their needs in order to better inform the owners and builder of this project. And the overwhelming for this type of property for a corporate retreat purposes, with the additional amenities that would be provided, that a minimum of 50 to 60 rooms is the right fit for something like this. The meetings that we currently do are typically focused right now in Cool Springs. They're larger. They have several hundred attendees. There is a gap in Williamson County for properties like this where we could offer corporate retreat type of meeting space. And those types of meetings do, those people attending those kind of meetings do expect amenities. And so we would certainly be in support of this project and others like it around the county, and would hope you would resist the urge to be so restrictive as to make these untenable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ty Kastner. I'm a County Commissioner in the 9th District, 3210 Del Rio Pike, and I'd like to echo what Commissioner Smith has said. We seem to have a lot of little bed and breakfasts or a few bed and breakfasts, and we have hotels, and we really have nothing in between. We have worked with and consulted with the staff, for a number of months now, and initially I was pretty skeptical about this idea. The more I learned about it, the more excited we became about it. I can't speak for the whole commission, certainly, but I'm in support of this. I'd like to see this happen. I think it needs to be of sufficient size to be economically viable. I don't know if the current limit of 50 is adequate. It may need to be 75. I'm not sure. It's something we can take up at the commission, but we are very much in support of this. I think it'd be a good boon to the county, and our support is really grounded in the fact that this is limited to the metropolitan growth areas and Leapers Fork, which I think is completely appropriate. So I'm in support, and we'll speak for it at the commission level, and might even suggest raising the limits a little bit. This is a lot of land, and the land minimum lot sizes or land requirements are pretty stringent, and the restaurant sizes are limited. So we're in support of it. I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Do I need to get you a stool?
There's a problem when you've known each other too long. Thank you, John. He couldn't resist it. My name is Mary Pierce, and I'm on the Convention and Visitors Bureau representing the historic sites, but I also am the Executive Director of the Heritage Foundation of Franklin and Williamson County, who seeks to preserve our historic character and historic resources, and as we say, save places that matter. I think this is an opportunity to build a place that's going to matter for our community. I would like to point out that it is not only, I think, being thought about for the appropriate places as outlined by staff, but I also think it is a way to save open space when it is built correctly. And I think this will be, and it is a great draw for the county. We do have people looking to come here, and we like for them to come here and spend their money and not have to build a school for them. We want our schools to be the very best, but it's nice to have some people we don't build schools for. I think it will add to the rural enjoyment of our rural character. It will help preserve natural resources. It is going to be contemplate being, and I would ask staff to continue to look at this, a historic sympathetic design to go with the character. It will add to our farming base and really just be one more great reason that people want to come to Franklin and Williamson County, and one more reason that sets us apart. And I don't think I said that I live at 103 Woodview Court in Franklin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone else?
Hey, my name is Eddie Miles, and I live at 1109 Gardner Drive in Franklin, Tennessee. And I am the developer of this project and a partner in this project that has brought up this discussion about expanding the extensive rural retreat zoning. And I've been working with Mike and the staff, who's done a great job working on this. And as these others have stepped up in support, I really appreciate that. But we have looked at a piece of property that we purchased, and as we've been meeting with various consultants and market research and talking to neighbors and different business people in the area and kind of getting a feel for what we could do with this in terms of an extensive rural retreat, we've come down to a few things that are really important that we would like to do to make this successful. And one is we want to showcase Williamson County. We want to develop something that preserves the land, showcases it,
restores the property. We're going to be spending a lot of money on restoration of creeks and native species of plants and things like that. But also, what we'd like to provide is something that actually has an economic viability to draw people in, to increase and to build off of this tourism business that Franklin has done a great job developing, and Leapers Fork has done a great job, and we think we've got a good opportunity to do that. And some of the things that we've needed to make that happen, like to be able to have food as a of this and have a spa as an important amenity to this. Mike and the staff are recommending some ways for us to be able to do that, and we would appreciate you approving that. We would like to see, the only place I have had any disagreement with Mike is on the cap of the rooms. I think the way the land is situated and with the room count per acre that we were working off of before the cap, I think we still keep a very nice low density to the property. We're looking at a property that after development will have a 95% plus green space and a very low traffic count. So I'd like y'all to also consider the opportunity to maybe revisit the room cap as well, but we would really appreciate your support in this vote. I think Mike's done a great job with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Warnick. I live at 5514 Joseph Street. Although my address says Franklin, Tennessee, I live in the heart of the village of Leapers Fork. A lot of you are familiar faces, familiar faces because I've been in front of this group before. I've also served on the Comprehensive Land Use Planning Committee for the county. Although obviously this group has not been able to talk to all of the residents of Leapers Fork, they have spoken with quite a few of the members, and they were very open to some listening to the community and even making some changes in the architectural style, and we certainly appreciated that. So as a resident of Leapers Fork, I would just like to ask this committee to take the staff recommendation to approve this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Raymond Minius. I live at 9307 Navajo Drive in Brentwood, Tennessee. Excuse me. I've been in the city about 12 years. I'm actually an operator of high-end luxury resorts. I've been in the industry about 29 years. I managed the Hermitage Hotel in downtown Asheville for 11 of them. And I've been very fortunate to work with people like Eddie on the development side. And I see what project we have in front of us, and there really isn't anything here in the city. There's nothing, and we all realize that. That's why we're here today to discuss it. But most importantly, what would it do to the county? You know, it's a wonderful city to visit. It's you in between Leapers Fork and downtown Franklin, you then can see another wonderful opportunity as a luxury resort. And I've been pursued nearly, out of the 12 years I lived here, probably 10 years to try to do something in the Williamson County, Franklin area for a luxury resort. My background is in small boutique properties too. So besides the Hermitage Hotel, I've done small properties as small as 38, 39 rooms at a very high-end level. The one I came from in Santa Barbara, California is the #1 hotel in the country this year by Forbes magazine. I say that because there is a great opportunity for what we can do very uniquely in the Franklin area, since there's really nothing even near us next to Blackberry Farm that's about the closest we have to a luxury resort anywhere in the city. So I have seen the design. I've seen what we're trying to do as far as preserving the land. I've heard it through the city, through the CVB. I worked in downtown Nashville. I realized what kind of opportunities we have to add the additional rooms that are needed in the Williamson County area. So I I definitely support this project. I am going to be the operator, so there's plenty of confidence that we'll do it right from the standpoint for the investors. I hope that we can get you to also feel the same way, that we would do it in the best fashion possible. And I don't want to limit it to a certain amount of rooms also. I have done some of the study myself along with the economic study that we have received. So if we could get a few more rooms than the 50 cap, I think it would be great, along with a larger spa that was proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Last call. We'll close the public hearing at this time. Thank you. Questions, comments, questions of staff? Don?
Yes, sir. The only question I have for staff is that it's been brought to my attention. What control will we have as far as the noise or outside events that will occur at these venues?
That's a good question, Commissioner Crowe, and it's one that is addressed in these regulations. There is currently in our existing rural retreat regulations a requirement that that these uses not exceed a certain decibel level at the property line. That will be carried forward in the new regulations, but in addition to that, for these event venues, there's a specific requirement that they go a little further in terms of demonstrating how they're going to comply with that, what kind of soundproofing they're going to utilize to comply with that regulation.
Okay, thank you.
Susan?
I think I may be the only one who's in the dark about this, but where is this proposed to be built?
Well, I think we got two simultaneous things going on here. We're working on a resolution right now. The proposal that at least two people talked about is not an agenda item for us discussion tonight. So, I mean, I could probably get that answer for you because I don't know either, Susan. But let's try to focus on the resolution and stay with that, and then whenever the proposal comes in here, we'll find out where it is. Okay? You good with that?
Yes, thank you. I
You bet.
just thought maybe everybody else knew and I was the only one in the dark.
No, you and I are both in the dark. Thank you.
I would like to say that I agree with staff's recommendation, the number of guests not exceeding 50, because this is a rural retreat, and I think it's putting too much pressure on the rural areas when we allow too large facilities to be built. And I have a hard time believing that they would not be economically viable if it's a luxury resort, even with that limitation. So I would definitely be in support of leaving the limit of accommodations at 50.
Thank you,
Or
ma'am.
less than 50.
Thank you. Anyone else? Sir? Pete?
I have no objection to having a rural retreat like this, but this is the second time in the last year we've changed our zoning ordinance to provide for one facility. A zoning ordinance should cover county-wide facilities, and rural retreats would be an asset to preserve open space anywhere along 840 or along other connected roads in the county, rather than just voting. We voted on a steal of sorts for somewhere over there for a venue. Now we won't vote on this in a certain specific area for a tourist venue. The winery at Triune has brought in things, and something of this nature might go along with their facility. Other places, and there's, what, 6 or 8 connections to 840 in the county, 5 or 6. Something of this nature could enhance the economic opportunity in all these areas. I don't like the idea of us voting in favor of an ordinance for one specific building. And we've done that on 2 things in the last year. And I think that's completely against what we set up to do.
Pete, I'm not I'm not going to argue with you, but I'm not going to vote on something just because one person wants to do it. And as I said earlier, I don't even know where that question Susan raised, this development is. So,
And I'll add, Mr. Chairman, if I might, that these regulations were not drafted specifically for one property. There was a particular property that you heard about this evening that was one of the things that sparked us looking at these regulations, but they were drafted with the full county in mind.
Pete, I think the concept, as I see it, is we have had rural retreats all about the county. And I think what staff's trying to do, and I support that, is when you go into these extensive ones, is to pull them a little closer to the municipalities rather than out in the boondocks. And I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, out in the very, very rural county. And I think that's what this is about, at least in my judgment, trying to move it closer in, Leapers Fork, because they have a village concept there, or the municipal growth areas, and that's what it's limited to. So I'm not sure that I would support extensive rural retreats anywhere and everywhere. There may be some other areas, and 840 may be where they might need to be because of the traffic ability to
We've
move
differed
traffic.
before, John. It won't make any difference.
Pardon me?
We've differed before, so it doesn't bother me a bit.
I'm not too concerned either, Pete. Thank you. Anyone else? Jack?
On this resolution in the fifth whereas,
Fifth whereas?
Yeah, it references the total number of guest accommodations, but it doesn't give a number.
It's in the ordinance.
It's in the ordinance?
Yes.
And that max is 50, or is it per?
It's in the proposed regulations that are part of your packet. The limit is 50 in the Leapers Fork and MGA 1 districts, as long as they can meet certain criteria. But otherwise, the limit is 20, as Chairman Lackey said, because of the more rural nature in those outlying areas.
Now, it's my understanding they also wanted some campsites too. Does that include in that 50?
The way it's written is that the total number of what we call guest accommodations could not exceed 50 in this circumstance, and guest accommodations could include either guest rooms or campsites, or a combination thereof.
Follow-up question. If this is approved here tonight and goes to the county commission and is changed on the floor of the county commission, it comes back here? And then it would go back to the county commission?
It would have to be referred back to the planning commission for you all to take action, whether to recommend or not how it was revised at the county commission, and then it would go back to the county commission for its adoption after you all heard it.
I tend to come down on the side, I think, I've toured the property. I mean, it's 180-something acres. It's a lot of land. Steve's group thinks we need a little bit more, and I would have a tendency to agree with that, just from an economic standpoint. Maybe I've got my county commissioner hat on, but that's my 2 cents.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Comments? Motion? The question before you is a resolution not having to do with any development, by the way, just so we're square on that, okay? Sir?
If we make a motion to accept staff's recommendation and emphasize the 50 at this time, that could be increased, in the future under, if it came back to us, would that be appropriate?
I would take a different tact personally. I would say go with the resolution as is, address the specific proposal that might request that be changed at a later date.
And it would be at 50 under this
That's where it
resolution?
is now, Don, and I think that's appropriate. And if something comes along that says, hey, we can do that, and you won't know there's 75, it'll look just like 50 or some other logic, then we can address it at that time.
And
I
they'd
think
come
you
back
wait till that
before
happens.
us to increase?
They'd have to.
Okay.
According to council.
If you recommend it as it's drafted now, it would go to the county commission then in this form with the 50 accommodation cap. If at the county commission, they took action to raise that to 60 or 75, or there's several numbers mentioned this evening, then that would be referred back to you all to either recommend that or not before it then goes to the county commission with that number for them to either adopt or not. If you wanted to send it from here with a different number, then it would go to the county commission with that number and would not have to come back.
Okay. I understand. Thank you.
You good?
Yeah, in that case, I'd like to recommend we accept staff's recommendation on this.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? I see none. Prepare to vote. Vote now. Record it. Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item 16. If I can find it. Concept plan for Fox Hedge, Farms, small major subdivision containing 3 lots on 3.72 acres located off of Old Hillsborough Road in the 9th voting district. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is requesting concept plan review for this 3-lot subdivision in the Leapers Fork Village zoning district. The review of a concept plan is the first stage in the development approval process of a small major subdivision. The site has an area of 3.72 acres and is located on Old Hillsborough Road in the midst of the Leapers Fork Village. The property is located some 2,000 feet east of Bailey Road. The property slopes upward moderately from southeast to northwest. There is 100-year floodplain located on Lot 3, but it is located outside of the building envelope. The applicant owns approximately 370 acres south of the site, much of which is encumbered by the floodplain. The off-site septic easements are proposed to be located on this larger parcel. Currently, there are 2 houses on this site. It is the intent of the applicant to demolish one of the houses and create a total of 3 lots. The remaining house will be retained largely in its current setting. As will be noted upon review of the plat, the applicant is requesting consideration of off-site septic easements. Such would require a variance of the subdivision regulations. This is influenced to some extent by the inconvenient location of suitable soils as it relates to lot locations. This issue is exacerbated to a certain extent by the fact that the Leapers Fork Village Plan calls for front setbacks to be relatively close to the street, thus eliminating any consideration of suitable soils to be located in front yards. HB and TS Utility District will provide water service to this site. Approval of the driveway locations will be required by the Tennessee Department of Transportation before the final plat can be approved. As a general rule, this Planning Commission has been reluctant to embrace off-site septic easements for new lots. This concern, however, must be tempered by the fact that the Leapers Fork Village Plan and resulting design standards are driving this request to some extent. Given that this will be among the first projects of new construction in Leapers Fork Village under these standards, staff would request that this long-held disinclination toward off-site septic easements be reconsidered in an effort to satisfy these design goals. Staff recommends approval of this concept plan pending submission of the approved final plat in DWG format on recordable media based on the Tennessee State Plane Coordinate System prior to signature and recording of the plat, approval of a variance to allow off-site septic easements for the lots in question, and prior to approval of the final plat, proof of approval of the driveway locations shall be submitted to the Planning Department.
Thank you, sir. Questions of staff? Tom, do you have something to say?
No.
Susan. It's a good idea.
Susan.
Susan?
I may not be reading this correctly, but it looks like that the septic fields are within the 100-year floodplain. Am I correct on that? And is that a problem if that's the case?
You are correct. But that's not a problem. I have a setback from the creek bank, but that's typically in the 100-year flood. That's where our best soils lie. So
other comments? I have a question for staff. You know, I've been one of those that's been reticent to go off-site with septics, and I think we may be opening the famous Pandora's box here. Is there some way we can set, I'm looking for the words, some kind of logic to do this rather than just, I can see a lot of things coming in the door. The septic tank's over on 2 farms over. I can't think of all the ways that could be screwed up right now, but I'm sure there's a bunch of them. Staff, have you got any thoughts on that? I mean, have you thought it through as where this is going?
Well, I'll put it to you this way. There's been quite a bit of work done, not necessarily at the staff level, but for other things in the idea that, and we'll pick on Leapers Fork because this is the one in front of us right now. One of the constraints on Leapers Fork and keeping that particular village vital and keeping the particular lot sizes is the fact that the soils aren't very good in that area and they tend to be kind of random. And when they came to us to discuss this several months ago, and you know, Tom can pipe in at the appropriate time, you know, we pointed out this is not something this particular body takes lightly. But we also have a plan that we've done in the Leapers Fork area, and we've done in other areas. One of the things that has troubled us is how do we manage to keep the flavor of that village with these kind of issues. But as far as precedent goes,
I don't have any problem whatsoever with that, Joe. I only have a problem with when they come in some off-the-wall form or fashion that makes no sense whatsoever, when there are 14 legal problems with it down the road a quarter of a mile, and I'm exaggerating for points.
Understood.
Some kind of parameters need to be established that dictate where this can and cannot be done before it gets out of hand. And I see that happening very quickly if we, and I don't have a problem with this in Leapers Fork. I understand the concept and I understand his comments to that end, but is anybody else have any concern except for me? Don? Excuse me.
In the past, we've stayed away from this because of the problems that you have with road systems and crossing other people's property. And I don't want to mess up the plan for Leapers Fork, but I think this is a mistake to open this box up. This is, when they have property like this, this is an opportunity for a sewer system set up that would handle a situation like this, not off-site sewer. I think off-site sewer is a mistake.
Well, I'll say this one, and I'm not trying to get into a cheerleading aspect with this one right here. These are discrete requests that come to this body, and part of that request is there an underlying plan? Is there an underlying reason? Is there, you know, and alike? And I think, you know, to that extent, you can make a case with that the village plan, is we're attempting on one hand to implement this village plan, but on the other hand, we're stymied by the fact that we've got to deal with some of these soil issues. Now, as far as sewer systems go, there is an ongoing great deal of work that's occurring right now that we tend to use Leapers Fork as a model, but it's going to be applicable across the board as to how to deal with keeping communities like a Leapers Fork, like a Triune ultimately, like a College Grove, where we can keep those communities viable, because public sewer as we know it is an extreme unlikelihood, I would say. And so when this particular request came forward, again, we discussed the pros and cons, and we discussed the fact that this body has had a long-held reluctance to embrace this. Now, it's clearly is clearly y'all's decision whether or not this reaches the bar, but I don't think we can necessarily say this is precedent setting because of the facts embedded in this particular one.
Well, the next guy up at that podium right there will say that. I'm
Oh,
not
well,
saying
I understand.
precedent setting, and I concur with it. All I'm saying is, staff, look at the potential for developing some rules where this can and cannot be used. And that's what I'm asking you to do.
Okay.
So that it doesn't get out of hand. Is that, anybody have a problem with that?
Well, the only thing I'm saying, be it the village or out in the county, there are certain lots in certain areas that aren't ready to be built on until the utility facilities are brought to them. And for us to make exceptions, I agree with you, is opening up a can of worms.
Well, you know,
I don't want to do that.
But the downside of that, too, Don, is that Leapers Fork will never have sewer. That's not going to happen. It's just not financially possible to have sewer out there, and there's a lot of other areas just like that.
College Grove has got some of the same issues.
Well, there are others. So we've got to deal with it as we got to play the hand we're dealt. Okay, and that's what it is. They're not going to have sewer in Leapers Fork, and and you're right, probably not College Grove. But look at some criteria that would determine where this should and should not be done is all I'm bringing up. And I didn't mean to sidetrack this whole issue for this discussion, but we've stood our ground for a long, long time here, ever since this got started in Hidden Valley.
Hidden Valley, that was more of a hostage situation.
Well, yeah, we were being held hostage at that time.
We had not a lot of bad choices.
There's a lot of those out there, and there's others about. So, with that, I'll move on. Brian?
I was just going to offer an add that there is a variance required for this one, and I think as long as that process is in place for future requests, there will be opportunity for the discussion like we're having right now to make sure it doesn't run out of control. And I agree with you that the guidelines will be perfect so that...
Well, I think we can do that. Okay? Staff, you listening? Mr. Matheson? Your head's not going up and down this way. Okay? All right, other discussion. Back to the agenda item. Any other comments or questions on that? Anyone? Motion? Is there a motion? Or is it going to die for lack of a motion? I'm going to wait 5 more seconds, and then we're going to move on.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion not to accept staff's recommendation under this.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
Motion made and seconded. Motion is to disapprove staff's recommendations. Okay? Any further discussion? Any? Prepare to vote.
I don't think we vote on the contract.
Yeah, you did. Do we? Yes, sir. I thought so. Voice vote. I can see a hand count coming up. It's not going to work.
It says no vote required, Pocket.
Oh, and we gotta believe the machine.
It's on the internet, it's gotta be true. All right, we're gonna have voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. No. I guess I'm the only one. 2, we lose. Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item 17, non-residential site plan review for Lookaway Farm, non-traditional wastewater treatment disposal system on 168.46 acres located off Clovecroft Road in the 5th voting district. Staff
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is requesting site plan approval for a proposed non-traditional wastewater treatment and disposal system in the Rural Development 1 zoning district. The proposed system will serve a residential subdivision that is planned for the property. The county zoning ordinance requires a site plan for a proposed non-traditional wastewater treatment and disposal system to be approved before a concept plan for the use the system will serve may be approved. The subject property totals approximately 168 acres in size and is located on the north side of Clovercroft Road, opposite its intersection with Tullis Road. A large portion of the site is covered by natural resources, including several hilltops, areas of steep slopes, streams, wetlands, and woodlands. Approximately 70% of the site is covered in tree canopy. The proposed system will utilize recirculating sand filter technology to treat wastewater generated by the proposed subdivision. The treatment system will be located near the center of the site, approximately 900 feet from the nearest adjoining property. A design development report and detailed soils investigation report were prepared by the applicant and submitted to the county. The county's wastewater consultant has reviewed these reports and is recommending approval of the proposed site plan. A certificate of convenience and necessity has been approved by the Tennessee Regulatory Authority. A conceptual layout for the proposed subdivision, which depicts 108 lots, has been included as Sheet 8 of the site plan packet. This conceptual layout is provided for illustrative purposes only and has not been reviewed for compliance with applicable regulations. It is staff's opinion that the combination of distance, topography, existing vegetation, and proposed vegetation will serve to adequately screen the treatment system from adjacent properties. This site plan is in order and staff recommends approval. Prior to final plat submittal for the first section of the proposed subdivision, a zoning certificate must be obtained for the completed treatment and disposal system. Prior to issuance of the zoning certificate, the applicant shall provide the following. 1, a letter from TDEC indicating that the non-traditional wastewater treatment and disposal system was installed and is functioning. 2, as-built drawings showing the location of all system components and a sealed certification letter from the design engineer indicating that the non-traditional wastewater treatment and disposal system was constructed in accordance with the approved construction plans and specifications. 3, a letter from the owner utility provider indicating that it has accepted the non-traditional wastewater treatment and disposal system and is currently operating same. 4, the posting of a performance bond in the amount of $142,500 for the non-traditional wastewater treatment and disposal system as specified by the county's wastewater consultant. And 5, the posting of a performance bond in the amount of $18,920 for landscaping improvements.
Thank you, sir. Questions of staff? Comments? Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? None? Prepare to vote. Vote now. Record it. Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item 18, continuation of preliminary sketch plan for Temple Hill, section 16 and 17, located off Temple Road in the 9th voting district. Staff? That you?
That would be me.
You ready?
No. The preliminary sketch plan for this project was last reviewed at the September 19, 2013 meeting. As you might recall, previous legal action mandates this project be reviewed in accordance with the 1972 zoning ordinance. The sections listed above represent the remaining unbuilt or partially unbuilt sections of this project. The proposed land uses / developmental options noted above are consistent with the plans previously reviewed and approved by this body. This preliminary sketch plan is in order. Approval is recommended with the following stipulations. 1, approval of final non-residential site plan for Section J. 2, approval of roads, drainage, and erosion control plans by the county engineer and establishment of the requisite bond amounts in conjunction with final plat reviews. 3, approval of the water and sewer plans by Harpeth Valley Utility District and establishment of the requisite bond amounts in conjunction with the final plat reviews. 4, confirmation of the access protocol for the private road sections. 5, establishment of minimum LFEs and critical lot designations where appropriate on the final plats. And 6, approval of the HOA documents establishing maintenance responsibility for all common elements by the county attorney for planning and environment in conjunction with final plat considerations.
Thank you, sir. Questions of staff? This is the longest running development in the history of Williamson County. I was a small child when it started. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Prepare to vote. Vote now. Record it. Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item 19, preliminary plat review for Arrington Retreat Phase 4 containing 35 lots on 49.33 acres located off Knowlesville Road in the 5th voting district. Staff?
A site plan for this development was approved in February of 2003. The applicant is now requesting preliminary plat approval for Phase 4 of the development, which will consist of 35 lots on 49.33 acres. The proposed preliminary plat is nearly identical in layout to that depicted on the site plan. As identified at site plan review, a number of items were to be addressed at the preliminary plat stage. All applicable items have been addressed to staff's satisfaction, including identification of critical lots and placement of applicable notes on the plat. The applicant is requesting a design speed of 25 miles per hour for the roadways within this phase of the development and a right-of-way width of 40 feet in order to locate sidewalks outside of the right-of-way. Staff is in support of these requests. The plat is in order, and staff recommends approval of the request with the stipulation the request for a design speed of 25 miles for the roadways within the phase of the development and a right-of-way width of 40 feet in order to locate sidewalks outside of the right-of-way be added to the preliminary plat. In conjunction with final plat consideration, the following items will need to be addressed. Number 1, prior to final plat submittal, HOA documents shall be submitted for review and approval by the county attorney's office. The approved HOA documents must be recorded at the same time as the recording of the final plat. 2, establishment of a performance bond for roads, drainage, and erosion control. 3, establishment of a performance bond for water improvements in favor of Nolensville College Grove Utility District. Number 4, establishment of performance bond for wastewater collection system. 5, execution of a stormwater maintenance agreement and submission of operation and maintenance plan for stormwater improvements. And number 6, providing 2 copies of the approved final plat in DWG format on recordable media based on the Tennessee State Plane Coordinate System prior to signature and recording of the final plat.
Mr. Staff, comments? Do I hear a second? Thank you, Jack. Any further discussion? Prepare to vote. Vote now. Record it. Motion carries. Thank you. Any other business? No, sir. We are adjourned. Thank you. Hammer.